Hey, 8th graders, I am going to show you how to complete the square. I have listed the steps over here on the side so you can follow along and look back. And I've also put these slides or these in the slides for you so you can look at the steps as you are doing your IXL today as well. All right, so basically, here we go. Step 1 is check to make sure your A term is 1. So that means that this right here has to be a 1 and no other number. Otherwise, we have to divide the entire equation by that number. Check, that's already done because it's a 1. Step 2 is to rewrite the equation so that the constant term is alone on one side of the equal sign. That means that we are taking this, the constant, the one without an x next to it, and moving it to the other side of the equal sign. So I'm going to have x squared plus 6x is equal to a negative 7. Step 3, this is the important step for today. All right. And the reason is we are creating a perfect square trinomial on the right. And in order to do that, we need to take half of our b term or our x term, the number that is in front of our x. We need to take half of that. So half of 6. All right, so 1/2 times 6, that is equal to 3, and we need to square that and add it to both sides of the equation. So I'm going to take 9, and I'm going to add a 9 here and a 9 here, because in order to keep our equation balanced, we have to add it to both sides. What we do next is we need to simplify the right-hand side. That's easy. That's just a negative 7 plus 9, so that's 2. And on the left-hand side, we are going to factor this into a perfect square trinomial because that's what we created by adding half the b value. All right. So in order to factor a perfect square trinomial, we know that we take the square root of our first term, x, the square root of our last term, which is 3, and whatever the sign is here, which is plus, x plus 3 squared. That is the factored form of x squared plus 6x plus 9. We learned perfect square trinomials back when we talked about special cases. So if you're confused at what I'm talking about, you may want to check back at that video. A lot of kids say to me, hey, Mrs. Cornell, what happened to the 6x when you factored it into x plus 3 squared? Well, remember, x plus 3 squared, guys, is really x plus 3 times x plus 3. And if I were to factor that out, I get x, or if I were to multiply that out, I would get x squared plus 6x plus 9. So it's factored in there. So 6x is still there. It's just factored. So this step 5, this uber important step 5, we're saving that for Thursday. Miss Green's going to talk you through how to do that one on Thursday. We're just going to stick with x plus 3 squared is equal to 2. You could move the 2 to the other side and finish putting it into graphing form. And what that does for you is shows you what our vertex of our parabola is, which is going to be the opposite of what's inside the parentheses with x, all right? And whatever's on the outside of the parentheses is our y value. So that's our vertex. But for today, what IXL is really going to focus on is you knowing this number right here, what we need to add. I should do that a different color. What we need to add to both sides of the equation. That's always going to be 1/2 your center term and square it, all right? One more. This one, guys, this one has a 2 in front of the x squared. So step 1 is you got to divide that whole thing out. So that means we got to take that 2 out of every term. So that means after we do that, we divide it by 2, we're left with x squared plus 3x plus 2. All right. And that then is what we are going to use to complete the square. So now I have x squared plus 3x plus 2 is equal to 0. Step 2 is to make sure that you take the constant, which is our 2 right there, and move it to the other side. X squared plus 3x is going to be equal to a negative 2. Step 3, our important step 3, is half of our b term. So 1/2 of 3. All right, that's 1.5. I need to take 1.5 squared, and I need to add that to both sides of the equation. I'll save you the time from doing the math. 1.5 squared, guys, is 2.25. So I'm going to take x squared plus 3x plus 2.25. All right, and I'm going to add that to both sides of the equation. Step 4 says I simplify the right. Basically, that means I add these two together. That would be a 0.25 is what I'm left with. On the left-hand side, I factor my perfect square trinomial by taking the square root of the a term, which is x, the square root of the c term, which is 1.5. Oopsie, my decimal point didn't show up. There you go. And whatever my sign is there is what goes in my trinomial, or my binomial, I'm sorry. So I have x plus 1.5 squared is equal to 0.25. All right, step 5, we're saving for Miss Green, but if you wanted to finish putting this in graphing form, you could move the 0.25 back over to the other side. X plus 1.5 squared minus 0.25. Ooh, it doesn't like dots. There you go. Mine is going to be graphing form. So what that tells us is opposite of this, negative 1.5, and this value right here, negative 0.25, that's our vertex. That's why I love vertex form, because it gives me that vertex just by looking at it. I don't have to do anything else. So that 8th graders is completing a square in a really, really, really small nutshell, because there's a lot more I could say about it. However, I'm going to post an extra video link to Khan Academy that will have lots of different extra examples that you can look back at. You're going to do more of this on Thursday with Miss Green. And please know that this is brand new, so if you're feeling frustrated, that's okay. It's going to take us some time before we all learn this, but please join us for Google Meets. It's the best way that you can get your questions answered. If you don't want to join and talk and all that stuff, just mute your mic, turn off your video, and just listen to the examples that we're doing. Or you can email us, and we are happy to meet with you separately. All right, guys. Hey, enjoy Tuesday. Hopefully it's less rainy than Monday, because it's been kind of a bummer of a Monday here. All right, see ya. Bye.